We are going to talk about a movie.
This is going to be a disaster. It was one of the best movies of the year.
It's gonna go so well. Probably one of the last movies I would ever want to see in a theater.
Hello and welcome to 10 Years On. This is episode 26, July 2nd, 2010. I am your host, Jacob Blunden, and you are joined by four very hungover, very tired people who just enjoyed a word for two movies from last night. But we did this for your entertainment. Taylor Robinson, how are you?
I'm actually not hungover.
Okay.
So, the second movie we watched sobered me up real fast because I was having a party with the first movie we watched, going at it, and then the second movie I was like, I need to stop drinking because I need to figure out what the fuck is going on. So that's about where I'm at today.
Yep. All right. Nick and Peter, how are you?
Frosty this morning.
I mean, same thing. First movie, great time.
I was letting the alcohol hit me. I was like, ooh.
Sobered you up, and I was like, you know what this did? Second movie stopped this from happening.
Thanks.
We were, you know what?
Shyamalan.
Like, because that first
The biggest plot twist of the night.
That first movie, there was knees touching and everything.
Leg just straight over the top of
Straight
it.
over, like sucking down
Drinks.
Just so everyone knows, there were no cameras last night. It was only audio, so you're not actually going to get the footage of any of
I
this.
did consistently keep looking for it at points. I was like, where am I talking to?
So, for those of you who actually have no idea what we're talking about, if you go into our audio feed, there is a commentary track that we did for the two films that we are talking about today.
We'll say, like, commentary.
And by commentary, I'm more meaning literally. So for the second one, I think we actually do a commentary track, right?
yes.
For Last Airbender, we did a proper commentary track
Yeah.
talking about it. Eclipse went everywhere.
Eclipse was like,
Eclipse.
hey, look how sexy these football
I was
players
like, Eclipse, we played a game of Fuck, Marry, Kill with 60 NRL players.
You know what? Not a bad thing at all.
So if you want to check that out, it is on the podcast feed. The link for that is down in the description below. But that's not today's episode. Today's episode, we are actually going to be talking about these two films. So we had in wide release this weekend, the July 4th weekend, a huge weekend in the US, not so much here, is Twilight Saga Eclipse and The Last Airbender. Let's start with the bigger of the two films, moving on to Twilight Saga Eclipse. As a string of mysterious killings grips Seattle, Bella, whose high school graduation is fast approaching, is forced to choose between her love for vampire Edward and her friendship with werewolf Jacob.
I mean,
I hate that
it's
tagline.
brooding.
It begins
With a choice.
It's a Twilight poster.
You know,
The
choice is pretty clear from the movie.
I mean, this is very much she again, and sums up the whole relationship. She just looks different in this franchise than she does in most of the other films that she's in, and I don't know what it is.
I think it's the fact that she's very young and like the makeup.
You can do a lot to a person with some basic makeup, and I think you boys are discovering the magic of what regular makeup can actually do to a person.
I mean, it's
this poster's fine, I guess. I'm kind of. I don't mind so much her, but I feel like the boys in the background are a little.
They're a little creepy.
There's something about the fact that they're all like all the heads are level. Like,
it's a little weird.
Yeah, like I don't like how structured it seems. Like I don't know.
And you don't really get the drama from this poster
No.
of it being like a love triangle,
triangle.
quote unquote.
And not only that, you don't get anything about the fact that there is a murder mystery going on.
No.
Like there's
This poster is very much like, you know what Twilight is.
Yeah.
You know what you're here
like,
for.
if you haven't seen the first two movies, this is not the one to start joining in on the franchise.
Well, I think let's move on and start talking about that. So I had so going in, I had seen the first one, the fourth one, and the fifth one. I've never seen this one or the previous one, although I've heard everything about the previous one. And like, I had a sister when these movies were growing up. I still have a sister.
I was gonna say she's still here.
She's still here. You know, when these movies were coming out, I had a sister who this movie was her franchise. She loved these movies,
Right.
so I heard a lot about them. I had a weird relationship. I just had a weird thoughts on this movie about it from a structural point of view and a introducing it to the audience point of view. But what was your relationship with Twilight before this movie?
I'd seen the first movie, not willingly, dragged very much to the first movie because I'd tried reading the books for years and just couldn't get into them. Like I kept getting gifted copies of the book and I was like, no, I've tried this. I've been there. So I'd seen the first one, I'd seen the second one, and I've seen one of the last two movies, but I'm not sure if it was part one or part... Like, I literally couldn't tell you which one it was, probably until I see it again, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah. But none of them were because I wanted to go see them. So, I mean, watching these is not the... The thing I will say about watching these movies is I at least have fun with them. These movies are not for me because I don't like the books that they're based off of, and I just don't like the story that they're choosing to tell, but they at least entertain me for what you get out of them, and that's kind of what my relationship going into watching this one was I know that if I don't actually like the movie, at least it's going to give me something to talk about.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Peter?
So I remember being in the States on a Kentucky trip.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, God, Kentucky.
Back in 2008. And the first book was like
I was born
everywhere. Shut up, Nick. The first book was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember buying it because I was like, all right, probably gonna need a little bit of time to like calm down from this
wild Kentucky.
Like Kentucky in Vegas. Yes.
Jeez, yeah.
And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, this book isn't rightio. And then I saw the first movie with a friend, and I was kind of like, okay, it is what it is. And then it's obviously blown up. And then I saw the second movie, which I remember really disliking. But then it was a case of, well, I've seen the first two.
Should probably keep going.
So I saw the third one in the cinemas the one time. So it was been 10 years. And by the time I had started professionally reviewing, the last two movies came out. So I was like, oh, I get to go see them for free, which is the best way to see these movies.
The only way.
So yeah, I just never... I'm not connected to them in any way. Like, they're just there.
Yeah.
And when you rewatch them, you're like, wow, these movies made so much money off of very little. Yeah. So, I mean, when you were 2, when this one came out...
I had seen Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1. I'd watched the first 15 minutes on DVD. I knew I didn't like it, so I just watched the rest in fast forward, so I had no audio. I was just skipping through it. I saw the scene where Edward eats the placenta, and I was like, let's nope the fuck out of here. And then last night, as we discovered when we were doing our drunk recording, is that the Muse song Neutron Star Collision came on. I had flashbacks to Blockbuster because on our loop tape that was the song, so I'd seen this music video for Twilight Eclipse about 100 times in the month that it came out.
And was it one of those music clips that like played clips of the movie?
It's them. It's Muse in a
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Lots of backlights and silhouettes and shadows, and then it's like intercut with scenes from the movie. So that was my journey with Twilight, I guess.
All right.
So we're all like super connected to Twilight.
Yeah. So with this movie, I'm coming from it with a criticism of I don't want people who are fans of these movies to just think we're attacking it for the sake of attacking it, because there are things that this movie does that other franchise filmmaking that I think this film should do, which is allow, like, the general plot of the film isn't really introduced if you've never seen the other two films. And I think that that's something that is important when you come to a film, anytime you do it should be, even though it is the third in a saga, you should be able to understand, especially something so basic as this one. Like, oh, hey, this vampire wants revenge on this vampire because he killed
James.
James in a previous movie. Like, that is so basic and so like...
And you don't learn it until like over an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
And when we found out it was an hour into it, we were like, shit.
This is the point of the movie.
This movie feels very long.
It
Yeah.
does. And I think that's something that when I'm saying I'm criticizing like the plot structure and elements of that, it's that sort of thing where, I'm not saying that, you have to, that's all explained in the previous films. Like, yeah, I get that the actual, meat of that story is explained in the previous films. And if I had gone and seen those and I wanted to understand that moment, but you should just at least remind the audience at the start, hey, here is your basic plot.
Just like a run through.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, because when we were talking about Twilight, like we mentioned the Underworld movies, and like the beginnings of the second Underworld movie and the fourth Underworld movie, which are basically the second and third in chronologically, like they do, I really like Kate Beckinsale does like a voiceover where it's talking about how, the vampires and the werewolves, like they've got this ancient feud, and it's like a few seconds of just her doing that. You're like, so if I've never seen one, I could watch this and understand why they hate each other. Like, you don't necessarily have to do like a previously on Twilight, but just like some sort of little catch up would make you go, okay, cool. Like I'll I get it. So,
but even just a scene with Victoria and Victoria just talking and saying that, this is like, there isn't those moments that are just this connective tissue. No. And that's an issue I have with the plot structure of the film. There's a lot of plot elements in this film that we can get into that I just think don't quite work. But I think I don't want to just attack this because of very problematic and very issues that this film has in terms of writing and dialogue and that when there's fundamentals there that I just don't think that the film actually follows through on. But it's a lot of fun to sit down and just with friends and get drunk too.
Like, and I think that after a lot of the movies we've seen this year, that's something you can at least appreciate. It's like you can at least have an entertaining time with it, even if you don't think it's a well-made movie in a lot of ways.
I think that's it. Like, just the what they're saying, you're just like, this is garbage, but my God, is it entertaining?
Yeah.
Like, it's, and that's something that I think gets taken for granted a lot of the time. Like, obviously, would I love it if it was a better made movie? Yes, I would, because it would be great. But if you have a movie that's not even really great when it comes to a lot of those essentials, but it can still entertain people in some way, that's miles above a lot of the movies we've watched this year. Like, at least it has some sort of life to it, something going for it, even if they're taking huge swings and missing, they're at least taking swings where you're like, oh, that's interesting that you went that way.
And I think there's something fascinating because you're watching like Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, who we know are like
very
two
talented.
They're two of the most talented actors of their generation, and you're watching them in these movies going, like, I know that you got into these movies, like, this was like your big break, and obviously you saw this, and this gave you the opportunity to do all of your,
other stuff,
weird stuff, but you're watching it going, you guys don't fare well, and that makes it even more.
It's like, weird because the fact that they did this and then got to go do whatever they want is fascinating to me, because these movies make them look like they can't act, which is why they got attacked so hard when these movies came out, because the directing and the writing
is terrible.
Is
awful.
Yeah. And like, even great actors sometimes can't save dialogue like that.
Look at Natalie Portman in Star Wars. Like, that's
like,
the example.
It's that kind of thing where it's consistently like that through all of the Twilight movies, where you go, wow, this had to be really bad looking back now for the kind of work they've produced since then. The fact that even they couldn't do anything with this and make it not feel just flat.
Like,
when all the characters talk to each other, it just feels so flat.
Like, they're on the same level as like Taylor Lautner, and Taylor Lautner has sort of proven that he's not. He doesn't have much range.
He doesn't have the level of
like
charisma.
I think Anna Kendrick, I think, is the only person who... I mean, she got out of these movies unscathed because she's just the bubbliest character, and because she's not like a massive character. But I think because she's got so much life, it's like, it makes sense because you see that life when she goes into another movie. Like, that's just Anna Kendrick. So I think she was sort of lucky. And it's quite funny, though, that she did become the star that she is because her role in these are not...
Yeah.
Are not
I
much.
also think with Anna Kendrick, it's easier to play it's easier to make it for bad, bubbly, happy dialogue to deliver that than it is to deliver
like,
bad, dreary,
dramatic,
dramatic
like basically
lines.
the dialogue that Taylor Lautner, Kristen Stewart, and Robert Pattinson are saddled with.
No,
Awful.
exactly.
It's-
Yeah.
Awful.
In the tent
And
together.
it's supposed to be taken very seriously,
Like,
and it's
that-
just
that's
that
it.
tent scene is
The
like
tent scene's really, really cringe and
there's
bad.
there's something that I do want to talk about, just that actually kind of takes away from the stupid fun that I did have watching this movie, and that's the moments where it gets very non-consenty
Yep.
is the way that I'll put that.
Yeah.
There's just some moments where I don't know if it's supposed to be like if they're trying to make it charming or interesting or what the angle is supposed to be, because clearly this movie is supposed to be a love triangle. That's
Yeah.
what it's trying so hard
Yeah.
to be, but it's not.
No.
And anytime she interacts with Jacob up until about the last, I want to say 15
Yeah,
minutes of the
maybe,
movie,
yeah.
I mean,
Until-
it could have been the last 15.
you're supposed to believe that there's a love triangle.
Yeah.
But every time we see him putting the moves on her, she's just like, I want to be your friend.
Quite,
and he like
forcibly
and he-
putting
he
moves
for-
on her
like,
too.
he's- like,
it's
he, like,
pretty-
he goes like, it's just creepy.
Yeah,
like
it's
the
very
way
creepy.
that
It's yeah.
there's some pretty like borderline sexual assaulty moments.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one. Like,
Yeah.
there's one
like,
that's
like the fact that then Robert Pattinson comes in and as he says, he's like, if you ever touch her without her consent,
Consent.
and you sort of
Yeah.
like, that's the line, because it's
Yeah.
like it's right there showing
But
you
it's
that
like-
like nothing
and
you're
I-
doing is what she wants.
Just 'cause
And I
the-
love that line, but then the movie doesn't do
Doesn't-
enough after
they don't,
that
like,
to
that's
be
what I
like,
mean, like, follow
just because
through.
the movie's aware of the issue doesn't make the issue of the movie right.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's just like, it's still a gross scene to watch, and it doesn't make me want to be invested in a Bella Jacob relationship.
But then
If-
and
if
then
I
by
gave
the
a
end, you're
shit.
supposed to believe that she wants to kiss him
Yeah.
when they make
When
out
they
with
make
each
out
other.
on
And
the
it's like,
fucking
But like,
stone
and like
mountains.
she makes out with him, but it's almost like this very big emotional manipulation thing.
Yeah.
And then she's sort
like,
of-
fine, I'll
as
kiss
we
you
said-
now, fuck
but
off,
As we
like,
said,
it-
it's like gaslighting her the whole
Yeah, it
movie.
is, yeah.
so that like I can have fun with pretty much all the other bad decisions in this movie,
Yeah.
but that stuff I was like,
I mean, the tent scene is so...
the
yeah.
tent scene is
It's
creepy
so
and wrong. And
wrong.
and you just sit there and go,
Intense.
but like the line of him, you know, I get the setup is an interesting setup if better written.
Yeah.
Of, you know, and there's an actual love triangle there, and they
Yeah.
all know about it.
Yeah.
That's been better written. It's an interesting setup.
It's it's almost like the love story. The love triangle is in like Jacob's head.
Yeah, like it is. And then him saying, you know, it would be better if you took
love
your
that
clothes
movie.
off. Like, that's just
that's what I mean.
creepy.
When we have that scene, it's actually kind of funny like before that moment, because it's Jacob's like, I'm hotter than you, and then that's the double entendre sort of thing. He's like,
he's lit-
temperature wise,
yeah,
and he's like,
He
throwing
has
shade
he
at
has
Edward,
body
right?
heat. Yeah.
He's throwing shade at Edward, and then Robert Pattinson, love him as an actor, but his facial reaction and the disgust that he has is one of the funniest facial reactions I've seen to in any form of acting. And then he says the fucking line like, you'll probably get warmer if you take your clothes off. And it's like, all right, Jacob, I know you're a literal dog, but like, fuck boy, reel it in. Like
but that's just an issue with this movie in general that I have in terms of how they tell this story of, okay, Bella is so set up from the start that she is in a relationship with Edward.
Yeah.
She is friends with Jacob. And that is set up at the beginning, and it's very heavily set up through the entire film. And she never really changes until a moment towards the middle of the film where Edward does something stupid because he's jealous.
Yeah.
Which is, again, another problematic issue. But he's jealous, so he does something stupid, and then she goes for revenge, makes out with him. Like
After they go on their weird. I'll pick you up.
Fucking 12 years old.
I'll pick you up wherever I go.
Like I know I know this is written for teens, but that doesn't help. Like, it really doesn't help any of the consent issues that we have now in today's society.
That's the thing that I get. I don't get like overly angry about it, but it like kind of pisses me off when like you can go like, oh, video games cause violent kids, or like, you know, crude jokes where like things like Jackass and stuff are abhorrent for teenage boys, where I'm like, this is just as dangerous for its target audience. Being like, this is, you know, a normal relationship. Like, it's fucking the furthest thing from a normal relationship.
Like, if you have a boyfriend, but you have like a good-looking guy friend, and he wants to be with you, maybe you
let
should,
him
like,
gaslight the fuck out of you.
Maybe you should question your like
make sure
relationship.
you kiss him to make sure he's happy as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's so fucking detrimental. And then, like, it pisses me off because then I'm one of the boys who watched Jackass when I was a kid, and I turned out this way. So,
but like, you're right. Like, that's it. You know, you can't if you watch these. It's kind of like the old Disney movies. If you watch them without any context and just watching them, going, oh, that's impression. You can have an impression on that. And it really brings up consent issues. It brings up huge psychological issues in terms of relationships that we are seeing now problems with in society, that both sides, like, I can't believe I just both sides this thing, but like, you know, men and women are all having issues with consent, and it's stuff like this that, and it's not just, I know I'm harping on Twilight doing this because it's just the example I have in front of me.
Well, this is the catalyst that's brought it up. Like, this is not the only form of media that's doing this.
There's a lot of forms of media.
And the problem I have is the only problem that the media wants to talk about and journalists and stuff want to keep bringing up about this movie is the problematic age gap between Edward and Bella. That's all anyone in the movie wants to talk about is he's a pedo vampire. Like, do you know how many articles I see come out about that every couple years where people are trying to say that that's the bad example for teenage girls? I'm like, he is a vampire, sir. Have you ever heard about...
So he's technically just the same age. Like, he's the same age.
Yeah, but everyone's trying to use the excuse of that. And I'm just like, that's really the problem that you've found.
There's out of
issues in
this movie.
That's really what you want to talk about. Like, fictional age gaps are not the problem with this
immortal
movie.
Beings, like immortal beings that
I'm really scared that one day my daughter is going to potentially run away with a vampire who's like 2,000 years old.
Like that one time I met that vampire kid, and I was like, oh, I don't trust you because you're like 40 in your mind, but you're like,
Whereas in, you know, issues of having a friend and a boyfriend, and the friend being jealous, or the boy, like, it's that's an issue in real life, and no one talks about it.
Because like it could have been one of those, like, it could have been great to have, okay, so she's a girl and she's got like a guy friend, and to show that it's okay for guys and girls to be friends, and therefore they're not to be anything romantic. Or if he does feel that way about her, you don't have to accept, don't act on it, and don't ruin what she's got with someone she genuinely loves.
And you're allowed to explore that in a movie. I think that's completely fine, because that is just a normal thing that happens in real life.
He's allowed to say to her, I have feelings for you, but it's a case of, don't make her be like, I have feelings for you, so you've got to have feelings for me.
Exactly. And even have the scene where he tries to kiss her, but then don't try and later on retcon it by being like, all right, we'll get Bella. Like, you know what I mean? Like, make that an issue. Make that that's like, Jacob has done a wrong thing.
Like, turn him into a villain almost at that point, because...
Have that be the catalyst where Bella now completely doesn't trust him anymore. And then we still have 2 more movies where she's now like, I don't trust my best friend.
Which, if you do it that way, then that adds even more just kind of natural drama to the werewolves versus vampires cultural issue that there's been for thousands of years, because that will at least fuel more reasons for there to be that feud. And then when they get to the point in the movie when Jacob's injured and they're all actually trying to work together, you have some really big tension
that's it.
there.
That's like
Can we just say, like, between this and like Tupperware Destiny, we've got some great movie ideas.
I know. But can we just talk about the shot where it's like, oh, we're gonna go meet Jacob. cut to him leaning, no
Oh,
shirt, sucking his abs in against the car in his cargo shorts.
Yeah, weird shorts and shoes.
Where he's just like, I'm just here waiting for you.
Oh, Bella, I didn't know you were coming today.
I didn't know you were there. Oh.
I mean,
And his tiny nips.
it is flaunting off his body again, and then when they decide they have to take Bella away or keep her away from this war, he's carrying her and runs away initially, and then as soon as they're away from everyone, he's just walking. And this is terrain that she could also walk in. He's just like, we're just going to do this whole 5-minute conversation with me holding you.
I also want to talk about the missed opportunity where they don't acknowledge how freakishly large the werewolves are. Yeah. Because Bella's standing up and it comes to her head, like the back of the werewolf.
So, his head
And
is
oh. I just think that it's a missed opportunity for there to not be one character that's just like, is anyone else like he or she's freaking out and everyone's just like not paying attention.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, this is normal, and you have that one character that's just like, what?
Like, it would have been kind of great, like, in, like, when they were reading, like, a newspaper, to have, like, a headline to be, like freakishly large. Like, you know, like, what's going on in our cities?
Is the water supply contaminated?
What are we feeding our animals?
Guys, that's I don't think we're gonna get any better than that. I think that's Twilight Eclipse. Look, we're not fans
I think it's still a movie you can have fun with.
I think it is too.
I think all of the Twilight movies have that element where you can at least be entertained. I just think that you should realize that there are some pretty big issues in terms of consent and love triangles and that kind of stuff, but you can still have fun with that.
I think watching this at an impressionable age of 13, 14, where you're just getting into this, that's actually pretty dangerous without having
an adult
like sitting down and going, no, like this isn't
like
right.
you can still show your kids, but talk to them
and
about.
And then sort of be like, and then when the scenes with how Jacob, so just go, what did you like? Where do you think that sits? Like, how do you feel?
How do you feel about it?
Sure.
Yeah. I think it's actually a good learning opportunity, especially if you do have kids who want to watch it, and then to just be like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Like this is,
like, do you think this is wrong?
Yeah.
I just want to know where your head's at, because if you don't think it's wrong,
we're gonna have a talk. We've got to talk. All right. That's Twilight Eclipse. Let's move on. Let's
move on to the worst movie.
The other movie from this weekend. Following the adventures of.
No, don't do it.
Aang.
Yes.
A young successor to a long line of avatars who must master all 4 elements and stop the Fire Nation from enslaving the Water Tribes and the Earth Kingdom. That plot description gave more details than the actual movie does.
I was going to say, well, now I know what the movie
Okay, can we just say that this poster has better effects than the movie does?
I don't hate this poster.
No, I like the poster, and if the effects would have looked like that in the movie, I would have been like, this is cool.
And it's kind of cool how you're just like, oh, that means like Dev Patel's just going to be able to conjure fire. No, he's not.
Definitely not. And they don't actually
in the background.
I like the
They underuse Zuko so criminally in this movie. It's ridiculous, but I actually do like this poster, and this poster would probably get me pretty pumped about the movie, and then I'd walk in and be like, oh no.
I love that.
Doesn't get a poster.
I love that the plot description says that they go on an adventure, and I would say that's probably the furthest thing that anyone does in this film is have a fun adventure.
I never felt
adventurous. Yeah,
but no, I don't really mind this poster. I think it's kind of weird that they don't have Katara or Sokka on the poster, but I mean, they didn't really do anything.
That's not Katara?
I think it's I can't tell if that's the Ice Queen lady or if that's Katara.
No, I think that's Katara.
I think it's Katara.
They just
let me
just
say then that's horrible.
Yeah.
Because if I can't tell if that's her or the Ice Queen lady we knew for 5 minutes,
that
then
looks very much like the Ice Queen lady. I suppose because she's got dark hair, it's kind of like it's Katara. Yeah.
I guess also, but some of the other posters though that I think a lot of these posters they had for this movie, I think the marketing actually worked for this movie. Like it did look pretty interesting. It made it. They were putting very much a they were heavily going, hey, this is the TV show that you love, but also going for a more general audience of
The movie, it's the TV show you love, and it's going to be the movie you hate.
but it's it's for a more general audience of come see why everyone loves this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll completely make you go, if this is the show, nah.
I'm not interested.
So
Who had seen the show before seeing the movie?
I haven't
You
seen-
were
I
completely
I
blind?
was completely blind, which I'm kind of happy to be one of the people that had nothing to go off of.
you've seen the show.
Huge fan. Big
Yep.
fan.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of the show.
We'd both seen a lot of the show, but not the whole show.
Yeah.
And who had seen the movie?
I had seen the movie. I had paid a lot of money to see this movie. So not only did I pay for my tickets, I had to pay for the upgrade for my friends because we were going in VMAX 3D and they were just going to see a normal movie. So I had to pay for the 3D and the VMAX upgrade.
Your friends screwed you.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
But they still got the worst end of the deal.
Yeah, they missed out on Easy A. So
I think that's what hurts the most. Had you seen?
I'd seen the movie on Blu-ray and I remember not liking it. So.
I had avoided it at all
Yeah,
costs.
we were
So,
we were
yeah.
smart. We
Yeah.
were like, I don't want to see this.
so
First of all, let's just get this hurdle out of the way because it affects the whole movie. This casting is
Bad.
horrendous.
it's bad.
It is horrendous.
Like,
the
So-
only casting choice that I like really is Dev Patel.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah.
But he got so screwed in
Like,
this
so-
movie.
and
It's
then
not
you're
even funny.
How bad is that? That even it's the Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart, and
Yeah.
Twilight. Like Dev Patel, he's awful in this movie.
Yeah.
But he's
Trying.
But he's
first
trying.
of all, he's trying.
You can see, knowing how he, how he's commented on it, saying how out of his depth is. What you could watch this movie going, yeah, you are you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
He's obviously just I'm just gonna go with whatever I'm told. He has no control. Over
I
what's
feel
going
like
on.
there was no actual.
Yeah.
No one knew what the hell was going on with this movie, but I just think it's such a weird, it's a weird casting.
It's weird.
It's because they didn't. We talked about this. They didn't even whitewash the characters to go with big named actors that would pull in an audience.
They
So
just
it's
whitewashed it for the
sake of it.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the secondary issue to the whitewashing controversy, which Jackson Rathbone in this movie
Oof.
is so bad. So we said it last night. The delivery of this movie, of every line, is super fast. It's Gilmore Girls fast. Everyone is talking 100 miles an hour in this movie.
There's no pauses for
no
He
emotional
doesn't
beats.
blink.
No emphasis on words. He doesn't blink. They're just all spitting out exposition so fast, which then juxtaposes how insanely fucking slow the action scenes are. Because M. Night Shyamalan's decided, I'm going to do these awesome one-shot takes. But he's there's also kids doing choreography who aren't actual martial artists. And we got to teach them all this choreography. So we got to be let them just do a couple of moves, and then we'll slowly move the camera to the next one, and they'll do a couple of moves, and then we'll slowly move and that goes for 20 fucking minutes. And then they're oh shit, that took 20 minutes. Jackson, say your lines 3 times as fast. And he's I won't blink either. And they're fine, yeah, we don't give a shit. So it's
And none
Jackson.
of the dialogue is written how people would talk to each other. Not even in the show.
It's written like M. Night Shyamalan movie, which does not match this universe. It's weird. It's M. Night Shyamalan, we said it again last night. He makes movies that aren't really based in reality. He has his own world, his own universe where everyone talks a bit awkwardly. They talk about subject matters that normal people just probably wouldn't have conversations about. So now he's just taken the lore of Avatar: The Last Airbender and been this is how I would say it, and it just doesn't match. And he calls him Ang. He calls him
And
fucking
the avatar.
Avatar.
The avatar.
Avatar.
Oh my god, you guys, it's the Avatar.
It's the Last
I'm
Airbender.
just saying Ang, the Avatar, and the Last Airbender. That's what. Fuck this movie.
But you know what? That would be a super entertaining movie. It'd be my name's Jackson Rathbone. I'm in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
See, that I also think is the biggest crime. Take aside the show. So I completely pull back the fact that this is a beloved show.
Which I can happily do.
This movie is just not entertaining
It's
at all.
really
it's
not.
like
Sorry,
there's
it's
no
so bad, you guys.
like but it's not so bad. It's fun. Like
No.
it's, it's
like,
just
like we
We
were
like-
having the best time drinking and just
Fuck,
going
marry,
on,
kill,
on a
and,
tangent
like,
with Twilight.
Yeah.
Doing all kinds of
And,
stuff.
and in our mind
Pops.
thinking, oh my god, Airbender, this movie will will go
Yeah.
off the route. This sobered us.
Yeah, it was actually really
Like
sad.
it was, like you could almost feel like everyone being like, "Oh, this."
I literally, like finished half of the beer I had started, and then I just like stopped drinking because I was like, I'm trying to figure out what
yeah.
they're trying to do with this movie, and it's like going no.
That's it. Like
So-
we had to. It's like we had to pay attention, and that's not a compliment to the movie.
no,
Oh,
it's
no.
it's kind of one of those ones where we had to pay attention because it was so bad at using visual storytelling
Yeah.
and using
Yeah.
using the medium. M. Night was not the director for this franchise, and that's not a slight on him. I don't think because I think it was more. This was a most likely his kids or something like it was a contract deal because he was like, hey, I can put my name against one of the most beloved franchises, and I think that I don't hate him for doing that because we've all seen films like this where a very talented director goes onto a paid job.
Yeah.
This was very much a paid job, and you can tell that his style of filmmaking does not suit this universe. You needed someone who can do fantasy while also being someone who can introduce a world. I do think someone like a JJ would have done at least a better job than we got. Like I'm if JJ did it, he's only doing the first one and then get someone else to do the
That's
next
the other
two.
thing.
They set up another one and then we never get it.
Yeah.
But this movie has the problem of it moves so fast, but nothing really actually happens.
exactly.
Like and it's weirdly cut too, because you'll be with a certain set of characters doing one thing, and then you'll cut to the Fire Nation or someone else, and then you'll cut back and these characters are somewhere else doing something else. Like there's no actual through line of like what anyone's doing, and no explanation of like why you're going from one place to the other or how you're getting there or like why that's important. Like there's just no
Like Dev Patel's character are getting like, you think he gets killed,
yeah.
and then.
But there's no
minutes
weight to
later,
that
there's
scene at
no-
all.
And then also he pops up in another scene, and there's no like you don't get
Reveal.
but you don't get like
Yeah.
so you were saved.
It's like, wait, what happened?
Well, and-
he's just back.
And the
there.
Avatar gets saved at one point, but there's no build. Like you don't care when he
that's
gets
it.
saved
No,
because there's
no.
no build up to what's even happening.
And then the other thing with the Avatar as well is that the whole movie is supposed to be focused on the fact that he is now learning, or he's trying to master water bending.
Yeah.
And then we get one little scene where he struggles, and then the next scene he's got 3 like streams of water going at once, and we're like, so we've seen no training, we've seen no struggle, and then we all said last night when it comes to the final climactic scene where he makes the huge wave to push the Fire Nation away, we're like,
push them away.
yeah, not even trying to kill them, but I like, again, we're like, it's a kid's show, so
Yeah.
but like he that moment should be the moment where he finally masters it. Like I feel like in a movie like this you can sort of let it happen, whereas like if he's struggling and then all of a sudden it's a huge one, you can go, okay, well this is the climax of the movie, like we can give a little liberty. But because he's already mastered it to an extent, we're like, well, he should just do. Oh, he doesn't. Okay, cool.
Well, and they have the whole scene set up to look like a Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings kind of battle,
Huge battle.
Yeah.
but you don't feel anything, and
There's
it
no
goes
stakes.
nowhere.
I think stakes is the biggest problem this film has.
Yeah.
We are never given the reason for why the Fire Nation are so terrifying. We're never given that, like, this is the Empire. This is the be-all. This is Voldemort. This is, like, we're never given that moment of, like, look, like the opening shot of Star Wars. We're not given that opening shot of Star Wars of, here's a rebel ship and here is the vast majority of the Empire. We're not given that one moment where you can go, okay, I get it. I completely get it.
They talk about the Fire Lord once and then show him.
Yeah.
Like they never
He's there,
build
yeah,
up to like any sort of.
Yeah, because like I know that because you all said like this is the Fire Lord character, and I remember you said how how
In the
unceremonious this reveal was.
Yeah.
And so like as someone who has no idea what's going on, like So I would have had no idea that character was as important as he is.
Yeah.
So when he shows up, it's to someone who has no context, it's just like, okay, he's just another,
and then
he's just another character.
Yeah.
And then you sort of get like he's revealed, but like he's
Yeah.
not revealed.
And the thing that's wrong with that reveal is that when we're first shown the Fire Nation, we get Prince Zuko and the other, I can't remember the other guy's name. The guy who's in the internship, but I can't remember his character's name.
Yeah.
So
Zuko. No, not Zuko. Zhao.
Zhao, that's right. And you sort of get like there's an inkling that he might be the bat. Like there's so much focus on him. So you're like, okay, so it makes sense that Zuko is the up and comer. We called him Kylo Ren last night, which is a good comparison. And then, Zhao is the next in line. And then literally the next scene, it's like, oh, no, there's a guy who's more intimidating than Zhao. And this is the Fire Lord. So like, okay, so why do we care about what happened in that last scene where there's a minor power struggle
And
with Zuko?
they never explain. There's a scene in the movie that confuses me more than anything as to why they put this in this movie, where Zuko like helps Aang escape.
Yeah.
But it's never explained
Yeah.
why he does
No.
it, and then after that scene, you never see him again until he's fighting Katara.
Katara, when Katara
So like,
tries to help Aang.
how does he go from
Yeah.
like they just don't tell like? How would you see that and not be completely confused
Right.
as to what the point of his character is?
And unless they're just like, oh, but like in the third or fourth movie, like
This will all make
makes
sense.
and you'd be like, well, can you just make it a little bit more?
Let's just make one competent movie first.
And that's, I think, my issue is again, it's structurally. This
Structure.
movie is very problematic. Like, no pun intended, but all the elements are for this movie are there.
Water and one.
Yeah, but you've got the villain, you've got these interesting characters where you could do something there very easily.
Yeah,
it's just like I said last night. The main villain of this film should be Zhao.
Yeah.
Like he's the main villain of this film.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then Katana is the main hero. Like it's her story.
They focus on her so much in the second half of the movie.
Yeah.
Like it would be a lot cooler to see her at. Like we build up Aang to be sort of like the 4 movie arc.
Yeah.
And then have this be Katara's movie.
Yeah,
It'd be fucking awesome.
I think there is a lot of moments where they don't earn moments. So or they try and they try and do the same moment 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So the whole like 40 seconds where you see the full like movement and motion, which is, it looks great and it's fine. It's just slow and it takes away. And it's like, you don't show that 3 times in
You
a
know
movie.
what else
You show
really
it once.
kills this movie for me and really makes it lifeless is none of this cast has chemistry with each other at all.
No.
Like Katara and Sokka have no chemistry as brother and sister at all.
No.
Like the fucking Ice Queen that we're supposed to believe is in love with Sokka by the end of the movie.
Like he's
Like they didn't even try to build
Trying.
that up at all, like with any sort of chemistry there.
Yeah.
Katara and Aang, nothing.
No, nothing.
Like
Nothing
no,
there.
no, like not even like mutual respect. Like it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
and then every time they talk to each other, as we said with the delivery, it's so blah. Like it's literally just like, just say the line. It doesn't matter if you don't put a break in it. It doesn't matter if you emphasize.
There's no emphasis on anything important. There's no emotional levity or breaks to it. There's literally just the same issue we had with Ghost Rider earlier this year. It just seems like words from a source material or from like a book or something like that has just been read. Like you're just watching a person read lines and it's so boring.
The other thing I think, and I can't believe I'm saying this of all people because I hate when movies are too long. This movie's too short. Like it's way too if this type of film should have probably been 2 hours 15. I reckon another half an hour.
Give us that Twilight Eclipse length.
Yeah, I reckon.
But like just an extra half an hour to just give some character, give some moments.
But then, like looking back at it, if we had an extra half an hour of this movie, we'd be like, make it stop.
because they wouldn't have used it to do anything.
We'd
Like,
have done a few more scenes.
but in another universe where it's a competent movie, yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree with
I
that.
think that this movie just needed that extra because you're right. it's fast. It is
It
very
flies.
fast
It
paced.
flies.
Where, like we were sitting there, and I remember like I was like, oh, we're like what 20 minutes in, and it's like, we've been watching this for an hour.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it
It's
just
like,
flew
it's got
by.
that Jonah Hex length where it's just like throwing everything.
But
in.
that's it,
Like,
it's just
I'm meant
guns
to-
blazing
I'm
this whole
meant to
movie.
pick up on something, but
Yeah.
I'm not. But I haven't missed
And it's
any.
and it just hurts me even more because as someone who has watched the show, I was just sitting there going like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to be getting out of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I have no idea
I
what's.
can't imagine how heartbreaking it was for the show.
Like I posted on Twitter that we were watching it last night, and I literally had 10 people reply to me and be
Why?
like, "Taylor, no, worst thing ever." Like, but why? Like it was literally just like,
We do it for
we
you.
were all rooting for you.
We do it for you. So you don't have to watch it instead.
Yeah.
Realistically, they do it because I like to torture them all.
Wow.
But also another thing, how this movie is $150 million.
Where the visual
when
effects
the visual
are-
effects
the
aren't
poster.
great. Like the visual effects aren't great.
No.
None of the actors are like name actors that
No.
would be getting.
Well, we
this
were
movie.
saying Dev Patel probably would have been one of the highest paid actors on that movie,
But
potentially.
then as we were talking about, we're like probably not
But
because
then,
he wasn't like Dev Patel.
no, that's it.
You
So,
know.
so like none of
Like,
that
so
money
none
really
of-
went to casting budget,
you
and
know,
the visual effects are crap.
visual
So
effects, crap. The
it's
sets
like-
are beautiful, but we all
But they
know
look
but they
fake.
look
that,
fake.
yeah,
They're-
but like
They're pretty, but
Yeah.
like they look flat. Like
Oh,
I
they
like.
look- yeah.
For me, I was like, there's no way that this movie should have cost like more than like 50 or something.
With the way that
I
it
reckon
the
looks,
way
yeah.
that
yeah.
it looks.
do you reckon the post-conversion 3D would have been a fair bit
There
of
was, I
budget
reckon,
as
at
well?
least 20 million in that.
Yeah.
I think.
But that's still like 130.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't justify being
And then I
100
reckon
plus million
he's
movie.
probably 30 million. Probably at
Shyamalan?
Shyamalan
Yeah,
at that point in his
all right, so that's all right. We've taken off 50. We've got
Yeah.
100.
Yeah,
I'm
so
still
where
not-
that's at
I'm
100.
I still don't know where 100 million.
So where did
is
the
now.
other 50 go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Less-
do they just have a really nice craft service?
less paramount than being like the village, Lady in the Water.
But was Lady in the Water before or after this?
Before.
Oh,
The-
that
he-
was the
his
succession
next
of-
film, his
Okay.
next
'Cause I thought-
filmography goes After Earth. After
Oh
Earth.
fuck! After Earth.
After Earth is in 2013, and then
The
he doesn't
Visit
do
in
any, and then he goes
2015.
Visit, Split,
And he does
Glass.
Glass.
Because for some reason I was thinking Lady in the Water was after this because because The Happening, as much as The Happening was critically blasted,
So bad,
it
it's good,
actually
though.
did quite well commercially. So I thought maybe if you
Oh,
did
Marky
this
Mark.
and then Avatar and
Yeah.
then Lady in the Water, but no, he
did Lady in the
No,
Water.
yeah.
I think it was like 2005,
they gave him
2006.
another chance.
Yeah. Well, after this, I'll never forget because after this they do After Earth. He does After Earth, and then his
was-
first movie. His name was nowhere
And
because
then
after this movie,
He does the
the Visit. The Visit's
When did
his.
he do Devil? I
He never
did-
did.
he
Devil's
That's
this
this
year.
year.
Devil's
This year as
this
well.
year,
Yeah.
but he doesn't like
Yeah.
because Devil was built very much on his name,
yeah.
and then this movie came out, and they kind of all went, "Oh shit, his name's Mud now." Like because of how much hatred this movie got from the fan base,
Yeah.
rightfully so.
Yeah. And then because Lady in the Water was like underperformed.
Yeah.
After Earth was its own.
Yeah,
thing.
like After Earth Coming was one of those movies where they were like, oh, him and Will Smith
Smith.
working together because it was Will Smith's first movie in 5 years.
This can't fail.
Yeah, like it was a big
What, since like
deal.
7 pounds or something, right?
Outside of his first original film, because he did Men in Black 3,
Oh, of
but
course, yeah.
7 Pounds was his last film. Then he took a
Took a break.
forever break.
Men in Black 3, After
Yeah.
Earth.
And then and then The Visit was like micro budget,
Yeah.
which
Blumhouse,
is why
yeah.
when it was successful, it was like, oh, okay, we can
But
actually.
also a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
really
and then he
good
did,
movie.
and then
Actually get him-
Split came, and then Split happened, and
Yeah.
Split was the one that went, he's back.
He's back.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway.
That's Last Airbender, guys.
I'm adding it to my fucking list along with goddamn fan four stick that I never wanted to watch and now I have to live with knowing I've seen.
No,
Like I just
That's, yeah.
thank you for that. Thanks.
Things you do for love.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the weekend box office.
Yeah, I haven't felt any love.
Let's move on to the weekend box office. Number one, we had Twilight Eclipse with $64.8 million. Number 2, Last Airbender with $40.3 million. Toy Story 3 came in at $30.2 million. Grown Ups with $19 million. Night and Day with $10.4 million. Karate Kid with $8 million. A-Team with $3.19 million. Get Into the Greek with $1.2 million. Shrek Forever After with $890K. Letters to Juliet with $822K.
Oh, is this the first time
Wait,
this
did
year we've
Letters to
dropped
Juliet
under a
go back
million?
into the top 10?
Letters to Juliet comes back in. Prince of Persia drops from 8th. Killers drops from 9th. Jonah Hex dropped from 10th to 31st. A 92.4% drop after 3 weeks. Yeah, that was rough.
You know that it's not a great week in box office when your 2 bottom slots are less
know.
than $1 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, Get Into the Greek is still in there.
Yeah. I mean, this is also a case of it's July 4th weekend.
Yeah.
There are 3 massive movies out.
Yeah.
Like, Twilight would have sucked up a lot of the box office. Whoever didn't go see that probably went and saw Last Airbender, and then the kids
still
went and saw
watching
Toy
Toy Story
Story.
3.
Yeah.
And then you've also got like Grown Ups with 19 million after
Like,
2
that's-
weeks.
that's-
That's big. Like
Somehow.
Yeah.
it's more, I think, the box office itself has just they're only within 4 movies instead of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
So and they would have and also these would have taken up a lot of screens. So like
Yeah.
theaters itself
True.
wouldn't have still been playing Shrek Forever After or
Yeah.
like they wouldn't have been
Yeah.
playing those movies as much.
I mean,
so
that's probably why Jonah Hex didn't get in.
oh
there.
yeah.
Oof.
All right, in May, we have actually a fairly big weekend in movie news this week.
Ooh.
Andrew Garfield is officially cast as Spider-Man.
Hey.
He has been officially cast. Congratulations, Andrew Garfield. You will get to
You're going to get your heart broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get one good Spider-Man movie.
You're gonna
And then
you're gonna get a meh and a whoo.
A meh and a oof.
That's a
you'll
good
be,
way to
you'll,
describe it.
Yeah.
you'll be okay.
You'll be okay. Like your career, I mean, okay, you'll be okay because this year you get what should have been your fucking Oscar. But
Yeah.
anyway, Peter Jackson is in serious talks to direct The Hobbit. By this time
It's
next,
like serious talks about.
by this time next week, he actually just signs on. So it's,
They would have thrown him so much money.
it was actually a do it or it dies. So
Wow,
it was,
yeah,
it was, you're doing this or we don't make The Hobbit. And he was they were just not going to do it. They were over the drama. They were over everything. It was just, this
Yeah.
is too
Yeah.
much.
Let's can it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's either you sign on or The Hobbit doesn't get made at all. And he kind of was like, I just want this movie to be actually.
Yeah.
I want The Hobbit to be told at some point. Let's just do it now, so we can get Ian back. We can get the cast, so it does feel like it's in this world. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I think a lot of this movie doesn't. Those movies don't quite work as well as his
not
heart's
super
not.
invested,
Yeah, like his heart's in it in terms of you can tell even watching the behind the scenes stuff. You can tell he is passionate about it,
Yeah.
but nowhere near the level it
he's
was
not
Lord of the
passionate
Rings.
on his terms. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like you can tell he has a deep love of Tolkien. Like he really does love this world. But you watch the behind the scenes for the Lord of the Rings, and he is overjoyed about I get to be in this world. And then when in the Hobbit, he's very much this is fun, guys.
It's
like
a-
let's
it's
like
more of a. It's like this is a bit
This-
more of a job.
yeah.
Yeah.
Titanic 3D release is announced for the 100th anniversary of the disaster in 2012.
For me, there I was just like, it's been 100 years.
Came out.
So that's in
God, Leo's looking good.
in 2012 they get the 3D re-release. It's what's interesting though here is the 3D re-release hadn't become a big thing yet. This was James Cameron doing it because it was James Cameron and it was Titanic, his biggest film, so he wanted to do a 3D re-release. The craze of 3D re-releases doesn't come until next year.
Okay.
Lastly, Tyrese Gibson returns for Fast 5.
Hell yeah.
He officially signs on the dotted line,
I
which
don't-
was,
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you got to remember, like, Fast and Furious 4 didn't have any. It was the big draw for Fast 4 was we got the original cast back.
after the third one.
5 was when they went, no, now we're making it an
Action
ensemble.
movies.
No, we're making it an ensemble franchise.
And like Tyrese was
Very
he
outspoken
was
about-
angry about being left out of 4, and like
Was
Paul-
it?
And yeah, because he was like Paul Walker was
yeah.
my like anchor for number 2.
Yeah.
So I think Paul Walker was like very much like I want him involved.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff.
So yeah, they're the 4 big major
Yeah.
news stories. That's actually a pretty big week.
It's a big week,
in,
yeah.
in
It's a huge
news.
week.
It's pretty big. Anything jump out?
I mean, the Spider-Man casting was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge thing.
Because was the Amazing Spider-Man 2012?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's got
it's-
2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, that's always a big announcement.
Yeah.
Especially with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So that's a huge deal. I mean, The Hobbit is a huge story, but it's also just like, you're right, it's just not the same.
It's
Yeah.
retrospectively sad.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, at
Yeah.
the time, you would have been like, oh my
Because
god,
we
he's
know
coming back.
Yeah.
How they, we
Yeah.
know how it ended up.
Like,
yeah.
there are good elements in all of those Hobbit
Yeah.
movies, but like, as a whole, you're
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
like, oh, what could have been?
Yeah. All right. In Australian release dates, Twilight Eclipse opened. We got it same day and date. Marmaduke came
Hell
out
yeah.
in Australia.
The fucking hit. Australian hit of the
I
school holidays.
completely forgot that movie
God
came
damn.
out.
It did. It actually came in theaters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm
guessing
I
it
think it
was
was more.
long.
I think it was more because
School holidays.
school holidays
Like-
and Toy Story and Grown Ups. If you didn't want to see Toy Story and you didn't want to see Grown Ups, you didn't really have anything else because Shrek was so early. So
So go.
Yeah.
see
If you don't want to see,
Marmaduke.
if you don't want to see Toy Story and you don't want to see Grown Ups, stay home. Because Marmaduke's not going to scratch that itch. let me tell you.
all right, guys, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode of 10 Years On. If you want to go down into the description below, we have all of the links for our audio-only versions of this show. Also, you can find all of our reviews and Twitter and Facebook, everything down in the description below. I want to thank my panel for joining us this week. Until next time, guys, where we will be reviewing The Kids Are All Right, Despicable Me, and Predators. Until then, my name is Jacob Blunden, and we will see you next time.